see the graveyard over there. Cemetery. 200 years ago, a severe sickness, pandemic hit South Africa. And the name of the pandemic, leprosy. Robben Island was the isolation camp. Remember in those days, 200 years ago, it was a worldwide phenomenon. If you have the sickness of leprosy, they isolate you. What you look at 1,500 graves scattered among these bushes. Here you talk about white people, black people, the Indian community, everybody to the island. But what you have to understand, 200 years ago, medical profession was not up to standard coming to leprosy. A scratch on your arm, a pimple here and there, doctors cannot diagnose it, gone to the island, never to see the mainland again. In short, my friends. So many came down here who never had leprosy at all. And the moment they post you to the island, there's no return ticket, you must die on Robben Island. And I can tell you that these lepers were treated worse than criminals. And my friend from Denmark, it was a Norwegian doctor, Dr. Alma Hansen, 1841, who invented the cure to the sickness leprosy. So the cure was there, 1841. The island closed down after 100 years for the lepers. All lepers were sent off. And then the Second World War broke out. And the island turned into a huge military base. You follow? And during the leper period in the Second World War, all political prisoners off the island. At our next stop, I'll explain to you how the political prisoners were brought back to the island. But once again, 1831 up to 1941, 100 years, Robben Island, isolation camp, the sickness called leprosy. Thanks.
What was the cure?
No, you know, you ask me any medical practitioner, doctor in the bus. The antibiotic was invented again. Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much for listening. Leprosy, right? You're right. For many reasons. Right, ladies and gentlemen, you are from maximum prison, where Mr. Mandela and thousands were kept. On your left hand side, you see that small little house over there with a window on. The smallest prison in the entire world. Only one man was kept in that prison. The man who started the uprise, the revolution in this country in 1960. The man the old government feared very much, if not the most. His name, Robert Sobukwe. Robert Sobukwe was not kept with all the other prisoners, was kept sole alone in that little house. The cages next to the house, those were dog kennels, but the dog kennels were built after his time. It was only that single house on the entire plot of land. Ladies and gentlemen, I can give you 1,010 reasons why we so much want to get rid of the old government. But today I'm going to touch only on one. The most horrible law of the old government against the black people of South Africa. In those days, under the old government, if you're a black person in this country, male or female, you had to carry a little booklet in your pocket 24 hours a day. And should the police catch you without that booklet outside your house, 3 to 6 months imprisonment.
Wow.
And written in that booklet out of many, many laws and rules. One of it, your area of movement. A black person, male or female, in their country of birth, they were not allowed to move freely from city to city, town to town, unless government grants permission in that booklet. Neither were they not allowed to work or to school wherever they want to. They say when a man leaves home in the morning, he put on his jacket. And you don't feel the heaviness of that booklet in your pocket, you feel uncomfortable. Because between your house and your workplace, the police can stop you anytime, anywhere. And if you cannot produce your booklet, no questions asked, straight to prison. So on the 21st of March 1960, which is today, a sacred day in our calendar, public holiday, Human Rights Day. On that day, the 21st of March 1960, this man, Sobukwe, he was a professor. He said, today I'm going to give up my job as a professor. I'm going to join the struggle for the freedom of my people. On that day, the 21st of March 1960, he instructed all the black people countrywide to march to all police stations without the booklet, to hand themselves over to the police to be arrested. They followed his call by the thousands. They brought the entire country to a standstill. Unfortunately, on that day, the 21st of March 1960, in front of one police station in the town called Sharpeville, after the police arrested the first 100 without the booklet, when they looked through the window of the police station, there were thousands outside waiting to be arrested without the booklet. Instead, the police came out with the machine guns. And within 5 minutes, they gunned down 69 in front of that police station. Can you imagine the stampede of thousands running for their lives? Most of them shot in the back. Countrywide that day, there were killings. Countrywide that day, arrests were made by the thousands. The country was in chaos. The army had to be called in. And it was on that day when the old government realized that the black man is now prepared to die for his freedom. And when government realized that determination of the black people, they quickly reopened Robben Island for political prisoners after the Second World War. And they immediately built a prison on that side, 1960. They arrested Professor. They first gave him a 3-year sentence, which he served on the mainland. That's Johannesburg. But when his 3 years were over in 1963, the situation in this country was so explosive, they could not afford the professor his freedom. They brought him to the island. And because he already served his sentence on the mainland, they couldn't mix him with the others. They put him in that little house, so alone. He was not allowed to talk to anybody. They say the 3rd year, when he was eventually visited in there, his vocal cords were affected by not talking. Now, ladies and gentlemen, why is 21st of March so sacred in our calendar? Public holiday, Human Rights Day. It was on that day too when the eyes of the world opened upon South Africa. The very first country to step in support, India. It was the Indian government first who took the South African case to the United Nations, exposed the atrocities to the rest of the world. Then it was the Germans who opened up their borders for the freedom fighters who get military training. And it was the Germans and the Dutch who started to boycott South African fruit. The Scandinavian countries refused to trade with South Africa. The entire world isolates South Africa. And then, my friends, the Scottish, the English step in. The other part of the fight against the old government. In those days, you could have been the best of athletes, the best of sportsmen. If you are not white, you cannot make the national team of the country. Immediately after the 1960 uprising, when these all-white rugby Springbok teams would go to Twickenham in England, Marisfield, Scotland, it was your communities that would invade the pitches, disrupt the all-white South African rugby games, the start of the Olympic boycott against South Africa. And it was the last Olympic Games in Canada who refused entrance to an all-white South African team. And my friend from Scotland, I have to mention to you, in Glasgow, it has a square. There used to be the
Exchange Square.
yeah, but the activists in Scotland deliberately changed the name to Mandela Square. And the old South African ambassador's house was on that square. And the old letter writing, you have to write the address, Mandela Square. For them it was a great insult. For us it was victory. My friends, so the battle was on. One Jewish lady was instrumental for the freedom of the professor of the island, Helen Suzman, in Parliament. She fought tooth and nail, and eventually she got him off the island. 1969, banished him to a small town, central South Africa, called Kimberley. He died in 1978, age 54. Some books claim they poisoned him on the island. Other books claim he died of cancer. The forgotten hero, the pace-setter, Sobukwe. Two very quick last points. We had two revolutionary movements. The one is the ANC of Mandela, and the other one was the Pan-Africanist Congress, where the professor was a leader of. I had the honor, I met the professor personally. At the age of 17, I joined the struggle under his umbrella. And that has taken me throughout Africa, with military camps in Africa, mostly to Germany, Scandinavian countries, in search for support. I've noticed that my American friends over here looking with big eyes, where's their contribution? While the professor was in captivity, one great American politician came to South Africa in 1968, adopted his children. 3 boys and a girl when they were very small, took them to America, educated them down there. And the children never saw the father alive again. He was once the ambassador to the United Nations for America, later the mayor of Atlanta, Andrew Young. And I met Andrew Young personally. I also had the honor, I met Harry Belafonte in West Africa, in Senegal. I was in the audience when somebody took him over the South African. And I was called to the podium with all emotions. I have to tell the South African story. Stevie Wonder, Ford Foundation, great contributors to our fighting. The forgotten hero, the pace-setter, Robben. Endless I can talk about it. Thank you. And my friend from Wales, the Welshman that was central to our struggles, Peter Hayne. You Google his name, Peter Hayne. Take it, you can go. He was Welsh. Just hear this course. You can go.